Conor McGregor is fighting Max Holloway at UFC 329 on July 11th. After 5 years of yacht photos, cryptic tweets, deleted announcements, and a whole lot of nothing, the absolute biggest name the sport has ever produced is actually, finally, stepping back into the octagon. Of course, we hope that it won't be cancelled, but if it actually happens, it is a real fight, ladies and gentlemen. So the main question is, why the hell it took this long to get here, or to get any McGregor fight to be exact? Because the story behind 5 years of silence is messier than his leg break and more complicated than a contract dispute. It's about money he already has, leverage he thought he had, and a promotion that was in absolutely no rush to hand him a microphone. Pull back the curtain and McGregor's absence looks like a business standoff that neither side was willing to lose. We can start with the deal itself. McGregor still has fights left on his UFC contract. He can't fight anywhere else. He can't take a boxing match without UFC approval. He can't do anything that burns one of those contracted appearances without the promotion's blessing. The UFC holds the keys, and as we saw, they're in no hurry to hand them over unless the timing is exactly right for them. Think about it from a UFC perspective. McGregor isn't a regular fighter on the roster. He's a pay-per-view event walking around in a tracksuit. One big, well-dressed dollar sign for Dana White and the UFC. You don't burn that on a random Saturday night card. You wait for the moment where the return story sells itself and where the numbers are so big that everyone makes a shit ton of money. Until then, why rush? Now flip to McGregor's side. He's been pushing for things the UFC simply won't give. PPV points, an ownership stake, co-promotion rights. These aren't crazy asks for someone who has personally driven hundreds of millions in revenue for the company. But the UFC's whole business model depends on fighters not having that kind of leverage. The moment they give McGregor a piece of the pie, every other star in the building has a reason to ask for the same. So they don't budge. Not for anyone in this world, because Uncle Dana loves his bag. What you get as a result is a stalemate built out of his own fame. McGregor won't sign off on a fight unless the terms make sense for him. The UFC won't restructure the deal. Neither side blinks. And the guy who used to call his shots and back them up is now sitting in contractual limbo while the sport he helped build fills cards with cheaper, hungrier fighters who don't ask for equity. The machine kept running without him, which was exactly the kind of leverage the UFC needed. Every month that passes without McGregor on a card proves they don't actually need him. Over time, whether he admits it or not, it weakened his position, and as a result, we will have Holloway versus McGregor on July 11th. Also, there was a medical side to it. To be honest, the contract situation alone would be enough to explain his absence, but the leg break from the Poirier fight in 2021 was brutal. A compound fracture mid-fight, live on pay-per-view. He's posted training clips since, thrown combinations on the pads, looked athletic enough on social media. But there's a significant gap between looking good in a gym and being ready to take a fully prepped elite fighter's shot in round 3. Boards don't hit back, said Bruce Lee. And what about the testing? McGregor left the USADA pool, which immediately triggered a mandatory re-entry period before he's eligible to compete. Every time that clock resets, the timeline stretches further. Getting cleared by doctors was not just about paperwork. For both sides, it functions as a perfect public excuse to do nothing. The UFC can point to testing requirements and call it fighter safety. McGregor's team can point to recovery and say the body isn't ready. Meanwhile, the real negotiation, the one about money and terms and who controls what, happens behind closed doors, completely insulated from public pressure. The health stuff is real, but we just have to admit it's also incredibly convenient. So the contract is a cage, and the medical stuff is a maze. But honestly, neither of those things fully explains why McGregor hasn't pushed harder to get back. For that, you need to look at the money he's already sitting on. When he sold Proper 12 whiskey, the reported payout was somewhere north of $600 million, without getting punched once. $600 million. That number changed the entire equation of what fighting is worth to him. Because when you've already cashed out at that level, a $5 million fight purse is not what it used to be. And Proper 12 is just one piece. He's got Forged Irish Stout, a pub, a stake in Bare Knuckle FC, acting credits, and an endorsement portfolio that keeps generating revenue regardless of whether he ever throws another punch in competition. His brand doesn't need wins to function. It runs on the mystique, on the idea of Conor McGregor, and that idea is actually worth more intact than it is tested against a hungry ranked opponent on a random pay-per-view. So, what changed now? The UFC read all of that correctly, and they responded accordingly. They've never actually needed McGregor to come back on his timeline. They needed him to come back on the right card, against the right opponent, at a moment when the storyline writes itself. That moment is UFC 329, July 11th, Max Holloway. Think about why that fight makes sense from a business standpoint. While Conor was posting yacht photos and dodging fight dates, Holloway fought 8 times against elite competition. 8. He's one of the most respected fighters on the planet right now, and he earned every bit of it by actually showing up. That's the opposite of McGregor in almost every professional sense. And yet, this is a rematch, technically, dating back to a featherweight bout in 2013 that McGregor won on points when neither of them were anywhere near who they became. That history gives the promotion a narrative hook, and narrative hooks are how you sell pay-per-views. McGregor's leverage was always the retirement threat, the idea that he could just walk away and take his celebrity with him. But 5 years of doing exactly that proved the UFC could absorb the absence. New stars filled the space. New names moved units. The machine didn't stall. So when both sides finally sat down and agreed on terms, McGregor wasn't negotiating from a position of strength the way he might have in 2018. But he was negotiating as a man who likes the fight game, and the fight game loves him. The fans waited through all of it. Cryptic tweets, deleted announcements, Chandler getting stood up for 2 weeks before fight night. 5 years of almost. But now we have it. Scheduled McGregor fight, as impossible as it sounds. We have a date. Now the stalemate is over, and the math finally worked for both sides. McGregor's coming back. The UFC gets their biggest comeback story in years, and Max Holloway gets handed a fight that'll do numbers neither of them could generate alone. People can say whatever they want, but every fight fan on the planet is hyped about this fight. Maybe not about the quality itself, maybe just to see our ghost dance in the octagon one more time. And to be fair, whether McGregor wins or loses, the era of the ghost is finished. Subscribe to MMA Explained for more, and join our Patreon in the description for our picks on every UFC event. Cheers!